Okay, here we go. This is your Bring Me the News Novak Weather update for Thursday, June 18th. And we've been talking about an active period here for today, again, which is Thursday, over Minnesota. Now, portions of southwestern Minnesota, or northwestern Minnesota and western Minnesota overnight last night, that would be right in this area here, received some healthy rains. So that's great news. And now you can see cloud cover is continuing to slowly but surely push east now into much of Minnesota. You're seeing some debris clouds. These are high cirrus clouds right now over eastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin. They're basically harmless. And we're actually keeping an eye on what's happening down here over South Dakota, southeastern South Dakota now pushing into southwestern Minnesota. These are developing thunderstorms, which I'm going to show you here in just a moment on infrared satellite loop. And another thing to keep an eye on this visible satellite imagery is look at the clearing now that is taking place over portions of central and southern Minnesota. That's going to certainly help in providing more energy at the surface, which should fuel some more thunderstorm development over much of southern and eastern Minnesota. This is the area that I'm most concerned about for thunderstorm development as we go through the afternoon and evening hours. Infrared satellite loop, of course, we're measuring the temperature of the cloud tops. And yeah, this looks ominous here over eastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin, but it's not. Usually when you look at these bright colors, that means thunderstorms, but actually that's different today. This is, like I had mentioned, these are debris clouds. They're harmless. They're high up in the sky, so that's why they're cold. But it's mostly cirrus clouds, and it's not really creating any issues over eastern Minnesota, western Wisconsin. But we are, again, keeping an eye on southeastern South Dakota. These clouds, or these temperatures that are cooling right now with these orange and red colors, these are some serious storms now that are starting to develop and move east and northeast towards southern and central Minnesota as we go through this afternoon and evening. So again, that's where our main focus is going to be here for the next couple of hours, is southwestern Minnesota and southeastern South Dakota, looking at radar from the Twin Cities. Pretty obvious. Here are those storms that we just saw on satellite loop over southwestern Minnesota. And if we were to go to the Sioux Falls radar and put that into motion, you can see these are some storms that contain heavy rains. No reports of severe weather as of yet, and I'm not expecting a widespread severe weather outbreak, but as these storms continue to push east and northeast towards central and southern Minnesota and western Wisconsin, they could get a little nasty as we go through the late afternoon and evening hours. The NAM-NEST computer model guidance shows that. This is the future radar from the NAM-NEST again. And this is the expected radar picture for early this afternoon is right here. And you can see it's got these showers and storms developing and expanding over southeastern South Dakota and southwestern Minnesota. And look what happens as we go through time. By about 6 and 7 o'clock this evening, it's really looking wet from the Twin Cities on south into southern Minnesota along the I-35W corridor and then I-90 corridor in southern Minnesota. I'm expecting a widespread outbreak of showers and storms, some of them kind of nasty, and certainly many of them containing heavy rain as we go through the late afternoon, especially early evening hours, before these storms slowly but surely push off to the east into Wisconsin by early tomorrow morning. But no doubt this is looking like a pretty wet and stormy late afternoon and evening for much of southern and eastern Minnesota, especially from about the Brainerd Lakes and St. Cloud area on south. And I'm most concerned from about the Twin Cities and Mankato areas on south and east to the Rochester area for later this afternoon and certainly this evening. This is the rapid refresh total precipitation. We call this total QPF. This is what the rapid refresh is expecting to happen over the next 24 hours as far as rainfall amounts are concerned. And it might be hard to tell, but this is the Twin Cities metro area right here in east central Minnesota. And you've got Rochester and Olmsted County down here, and you've got St. Cloud area up here. The rapid refresh is expecting a solid 1 to 2 inches of rain over much of southern and eastern Minnesota and into western and northwestern Wisconsin. Okay, there may be some pockets that don't receive as much heavy rain, but long story short, much of eastern Minnesota, southern Minnesota, and western Wisconsin can expect significant rains over the next 24 hours if you were to look at and believe the rapid refresh model for precipitation. Now, if we look at the NamNest computer model guidance for total precipitation, it's kind of showing the same thing, although it does move the heavier rains a little bit further south and east over, well, basically the southern third of Minnesota. But look at some of these rain totals in the Twin Cities metro, well in excess of 2 inches over much of the Twin Cities metro by tomorrow morning, by Friday morning, and that's actually the case over much of southern Minnesota. So we need to keep an eye on some of the rivers and streams, especially in those areas that have received heavy rain over the last several weeks, because we could certainly be looking at some small stream and urban flooding in some locales if we get enough rain over the next 24 hours. And again, I think the timing of the heaviest rains are going to be between about 4 p.m. this afternoon and midnight over southern and eastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin. So please keep an eye to the sky, because not only are we expecting some torrential rains, but we could also get some severe weather at times. I'm not expecting a large or widespread severe weather outbreak, but there is the potential for it over southern Minnesota. In fact, if we were to go to the Storm Prediction Center, it shows you that it has portions of southern Minnesota outlined in a slight risk for severe weather. So that's basically from about St. Cloud or the Brainerd Lakes area on south to the Minnesota-Iowa border, and then extending just a little bit further south into northern Iowa. That's the area that's under the gun for the potential for severe weather, mostly in the form of strong winds as these storms develop later this afternoon and evening. All right, just quickly looking ahead to Friday and the weekend. I'm cautiously optimistic because the European computer model guidance is showing temperatures well into the 70s to near 80 degrees, not only on Friday, which you see here, and by the way, here's the Twin Cities metro area. So much of Minnesota in the 70s, maybe 60s in northern Minnesota, but Lakes Country of central Minnesota, northwestern Wisconsin, the Twin Cities metro, in the 70s to near 80 degrees on Friday. And that's actually the case Saturday too, because look, we are in the mid to upper 70s by Saturday afternoon, and actually that goes for Father's Day too. So if you were to believe the European computer model guidance, and I have no reason not to believe it, the European computer model guidance is expecting temperatures in the 70s to near 80 degrees for Friday through the weekend, through Father's Day, and that is certainly great news. In fact, Novak Weather and Bring Me the News is showing you that we are expecting temperatures near normal. The black line here are the black line here is the average high temperature of this time of year, and you can see the orange line, which is our expected temperatures. We're going to be right around average or just a little bit below average over the next 7 days, which is quite frankly a beautiful, beautiful air mass that's going to be coming in over the next 7 days. Yes, we do have a few opportunities for scattered showers and storms especially during the afternoon hours on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. But all in all, it should be mostly dry with just, again, I think a cautiously optimistic and beautiful weekend on the way for much of Minnesota. Thank you for joining me for this Bring Me the News Novak weather update. Keep an eye to the sky later this afternoon and evening across southern and eastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin. Take care.